At the farthest edge of our world lies a continent shaped by ice, ocean, wind, and endurance. Antarctica is the coldest and most isolated continent on Earth, yet this frozen wilderness is far from lifeless. Around its shores, the Southern Ocean creates one of the planet's most extraordinary wildlife communities. And beneath the frozen surface begins a food web, capable of supporting giants. The story begins with organisms so small that thousands could disappear inside a single drop of seawater. Antarctic krill transform microscopic productivity into food that can nourish creatures millions of times larger. When conditions are right, countless krill gather into dense swarms, becoming the currency of Antarctic life. Fish feed here, penguins hunt here, seals patrol here, and enormous whales travel across oceans to reach this abundance. For every animal arriving at the ice edge, however, abundance comes with danger. In Antarctica, feeding often means leaving safety behind. The moment a penguin enters the sea, an awkward walker becomes an extraordinarily capable marine hunter. Its wings have become rigid flippers, producing thrust with each controlled stroke.
Speed alone is not enough. Antarctic hunting demands agility, timing, and constant adjustment.
Traveling together can improve the search for prey and reduce the danger faced by any single bird.
A dense swarm can transform minutes of intense hunting into the energy needed for hours of travel. Every successful capture contributes to a larger struggle, maintaining the body, returning to the colony, and feeding the next generation. Between feeding grounds and breeding colonies, these birds may travel repeatedly through waters shared with far larger predators. And sometimes the danger is already waiting. The leopard seal is built for patience as much as power. Around a busy penguin colony, waiting beside the correct route may be more efficient than chasing every bird.
Penguins often hesitate because the first animal entering uncertain water accepts the greatest risk.
Eventually one commits, and hesitation becomes a rush. Numbers create confusion, but confusion is not immunity. Both animals are superb swimmers, and a single chase can be decided by centimeters and fractions of a second. Sharp turns can temporarily favor the smaller bird. For this penguin, reaching solid ice means another journey has ended successfully.
For the predator, an unsuccessful chase must end before wasted energy becomes more costly than the possible meal.
Energy governs almost every decision made in this frozen world. On land, the individual hunter becomes part of a crowded colony. Here, survival becomes a question not only of finding food, but of protecting eggs and raising young. Parents, each trip to sea must eventually produce enough food to justify the energy spent reaching it. A feeding ground that moves farther offshore can transform a routine journey into an exhausting one. The geometry of ice determines the distance between hunger and food. But that geometry never remains fixed. Wind can compress floating ice in one region while opening water only kilometers away.
A new lead can become a corridor for breathing mammals and a gateway to feeding birds.
Edges concentrate opportunity because ice, water, light, and prey meet within the same narrow boundary. For Weddell seals, access to the surface can determine the limits of an entire underwater world. Protected by thick insulation, the seal can tolerate cold that would rapidly overwhelm most mammals. Below the ice, it enters a dim realm where every dive must eventually return to air. Efficient swimming conserves oxygen and extends the time available to search for fish. Antarctic fish form another vital bridge between small drifting organisms and larger predators. Life here has evolved under temperatures that remain close to freezing for much of the year. A predator must convert limited underwater time into a successful hunt. Success buys more than a meal. It supports warmth, movement, reproduction, and survival. Above waits the only resource no diving mammal can remain without: air. One breath closes the cycle, and another dive can begin. For now, the frozen surface offers rest. Tomorrow, the same ice may drift, crack, or close.
Nothing in Antarctica can treat the landscape as permanent. And nowhere is that lesson more dramatic than in the life of the emperor penguin.
As winter approaches and most wildlife retreats from the interior ice, emperor penguins move deeper into it.
Their breeding strategy is synchronized with the harshest season Antarctica can produce.
The next generation begins while temperatures fall and daylight disappears.
Pairs must coordinate precisely because a single egg will represent their entire breeding effort.
The female produces one precious egg after investing enormous reserves into its development.
Then comes one of the most delicate transfers in Antarctic wildlife. The male lifts the egg above the lethal ice and shelters it beneath a warm fold of skin. His partner must now return to the ocean and rebuild the energy spent creating the egg. For some, open water lies far beyond the colony.
The male cannot follow. His responsibility now is to remain. When the wind strengthens, isolation becomes dangerous.
So thousands of individuals transform themselves into a living shelter.
The huddle is never truly still.
Tiny coordinated movements allow exposed individuals to work toward warmer positions inside.
Those at the edge endure the greatest heat loss, but they will not remain there forever.
Cooperation turns thousands of vulnerable bodies into a thermal system stronger than any single penguin. Above them, the winter sky can remain dark for weeks. Time passes not through sunrise and sunset, but through hunger, weather, and the development of life beneath each brood pouch.
During this long fast, stored body fat becomes his only fuel.
Every day of protection consumes reserves that cannot be replaced until he reaches the ocean. Dense plumage traps layers of air close to the body, slowing the escape of precious heat. Even the egg must remain separated from the frozen surface.
There are nights when survival seems reduced to one simple instruction: endure. But endurance here is collective. When the storm finally passes, the colony remains.
Then, after weeks of darkness, a new sound appears beneath the feathers. A chick enters one of the harshest environments experienced by any young bird. It cannot survive long without shelter. Across the colony, thousands of families reach the same critical moment.
Now another deadline approaches. The return of the females.
After feeding at sea, the mothers begin arriving from the coast.
Finding a partner inside this vast crowd depends heavily on individual calls. Among thousands of voices, one familiar signal brings the family together again. The responsibility changes hands. Food gathered far out at sea now becomes the chick's first connection to the Southern Ocean.
For the father, months of fasting end with another long journey.
Every step carries them closer to the food that has been unavailable all winter.
At last, the frozen road reaches the sea. The transformation is immediate.
Emperor penguins are powerful divers, capable of searching far below the bright-lit surface. In this three-dimensional world, prey may hide beneath ice or occupy deeper, darker water. Silverfish provide valuable energy to predators throughout the Southern Ocean. For a starving parent, every successful capture begins rebuilding months of lost reserves.
But hunting is rarely effortless. Much of each dive is spent searching.
Eventually, oxygen, not hunger, decides when the dive must end. One breath, and the cycle begins again.
Repeated dives allow adults to rebuild the energy required for the next phase of family life.
As winter loosens its grip, the chicks grow rapidly. The return of sunlight signals another transformation across Antarctica. Spring is coming, and with it, an explosion of life.
As daylight lengthens, sunlight once again penetrates the upper layers of the Southern Ocean. Microscopic algae begin converting returning light into biological energy.
Krill gather wherever food becomes available. What appears empty from above can become extraordinarily crowded below.
Fish arrive first, followed by predators capable of locating these temporary concentrations.
For penguins, spring productivity can determine whether growing chicks receive enough food.
Each bird attacks individual prey while the swarm continuously changes shape around it.
The swarm itself is defensive: scatter, regroup, descend, and survive. A successful feeding trip is only half the journey.
The captured energy must now be carried home.
Elsewhere, chinstrap penguins gather in enormous breeding colonies near productive coastal waters.
Their appearance is distinctive, but their challenge is familiar: find enough food to raise young.
Life on land can require surprising effort before the hunting even begins.
Thousands of repeated journeys gradually create pathways between nests and the sea. Beyond the shoreline, the familiar rhythm of the colony gives way to uncertainty. Prey is patchy. The bird must locate concentration before travel consumes too much of its energy. One dense patch can change the economics of the entire trip. In productive water, multiple predators can exploit the same aggregations simultaneously. And sometimes the hunters sharing this food differ enormously in size.
A giant has arrived at the Antarctic feast.
Humpback whales reach these waters after migrations spanning thousands of kilometers. For many adults, the Antarctic summer is primarily a season of feeding.
Their enormous bodies arrive with a simple objective: replace the energy consumed during migration and reproduction.
To accomplish that, they must find one of Antarctica's smallest animals in extraordinary numbers.
Krill density determines whether a feeding attempt will repay its cost.
The whale approaches from below, where a single acceleration can engulf thousands of prey. Its expandable throat allows an enormous volume of seawater and krill to enter the mouth.
Yet water weighs far more than the prey inside it.
Adélie traps the krill, while seawater is forced back into the ocean.
Then the search begins again.
A rich swarm may attract several whales without requiring direct conflict between them.
Penguins attack from above. Whales approach from below. The same resource supports entirely different hunting strategies.
Seabirds recognize opportunity as well, joining the gathering whenever prey reaches the surface.
A krill swarm becomes a temporary center of gravity for the entire ecosystem. For a few hours, an apparently empty ocean becomes one of Earth's busiest feeding grounds. For mothers accompanied by calves, the feeding season carries additional urgency.
Months of nursing transfer enormous energy from the mother to her growing calf.
Now she must restore those reserves while the calf begins learning the geography of feeding.
Experience will eventually become as important as instinct.
The young whale is learning a landscape it may return to across many future migrations.
But productivity does not remove uncertainty.
Antarctic weather can reorganize a feeding area within hours. Prey responds to changing light, currents, predators, and water structure.
A location rich with food yesterday may offer almost nothing today. Mobility allows whales to search enormous areas, but every kilometer costs energy.
Even a giant remains dependent on finding the correct place at the correct time. Antarctica rarely rewards power alone. Success belongs to animals able to follow an ecosystem that is always moving.
Signs at the surface reveal that another opportunity has formed.
For now, the season of abundance continues.
At the highest levels of the Antarctic food web, survival can depend on something more difficult to see: knowledge.
Orcas move through this frozen landscape in closely connected social groups. Young whales grow surrounded by experienced hunters whose behavior can shape what they eventually learn to pursue. Family relationships can persist for years, creating opportunities for knowledge to pass between generations. In pack ice, knowing where to travel can be as important as swimming power.
A corridor open today may close tomorrow. The frozen ocean becomes a map that must be read continuously.
And sometimes prey uses the ice precisely because the whale cannot.
For an orca, a seal above the surface presents a problem rather than an immediate meal. The hunters evaluate the shape, position, and surrounding water.
Solution can require cooperation.
By synchronizing their movement, multiple whales can move the water itself.
The first wave tests both the ice and the animal resting upon it. Failure is information.
A younger whale can observe technique long before mastering it.
Angle, speed, distance, and timing must work together. The prey responds too, turning the hunt into a contest of decisions. Sometimes the most efficient choice is to abandon the hunt. Apex predators cannot afford to waste unlimited energy.
Other groups may focus more heavily on fish, following entirely different traditions of hunting.
Rather than pursuing a single large animal, the pod works to control a moving school.
Positioning prevents prey from scattering too quickly.
Cooperation allows several bodies to function like parts of a single strategy. The lesson is learned through repetition.
Social learning expands the range of problems these predators can solve.
Yet intelligence cannot create food where none exists. Even the most sophisticated hunter depends on productivity far beneath its position in the food chain. Once again, the pathway leads downward, to krill.
And below krill, toward microscopic producers capturing energy from light. The apex exists only because every lower level continues functioning. Ice itself can also limit the predator at the top. Like every air-breathing mammal, an orca must maintain reliable access to the surface. Strong winds can compress pack ice and narrow a safe passage surprisingly quickly.
Experience allows the pod to retreat before opportunity becomes entrapment.
Young animals benefit from choices made by individuals that have encountered similar conditions before.
In a shifting sea, memory can protect an entire family. This is strength expressed not through muscle alone, but through relationships.
Communication helps maintain those relationships across dark water and changing ice.
Sound travels efficiently underwater, carrying information where vision may fail. During darkness and storm, that acoustic world becomes increasingly important. Hunters continue through conditions that would hide the landscape from human eyes. Their map is built from memory, sound, companionship, and constant observation. And every successful journey adds another layer of experience.
Knowledge carried by one generation can become survival skill in the next.
Opportunity changes with season, prey, and location.
Predator and prey may share the same water without every encounter becoming a hunt.
The most successful predator is not the one that attacks constantly.
It is the one that knows when an opportunity is worth pursuing.
Even orcas remain small against the scale of Antarctica.
And the world beneath them holds many more survivors.
The Antarctic ecosystem begins in places most visitors will never see. For young krill especially, sea ice can provide both food and structure during difficult seasons.
Each animal is small, but collectively their influence is enormous.
Billions of individual decisions create swarms that can reshape the behavior of predators across entire regions.
Despite its name, the crab-eater seal is a specialist of krill.
Specialized teeth help filter small prey from seawater. A resource that feeds whales also supports one of Antarctica's most characteristic seals. Their abundance reveals how much energy can pass upward from animals only centimeters long.
But life on the ice carries evidence of encounters with larger predators.
A leopard seal occupies a very different position in this same web. It is powerful enough to hunt vertebrates, yet flexible enough to feed on much smaller prey. Krill can still become an important meal when swarms are dense.
Bish and squid broaden the menu further.
Juveniles can spend years developing the experience needed to tackle larger, faster prey efficiently.
Failure is part of learning. Rest restores energy, but safety is always temporary.
Even a leopard seal can become prey when larger hunters enter the same water.
Ice may offer protection from one danger while separating the seal from its next meal.
No refuge in Antarctica is permanent.
Farther north along the Antarctic realm, another seal survives through a very different strategy. Southern elephant seals carry enormous energy reserves beneath their skin. But their true world begins far offshore and far below the surface. These seals undertake long, deep foraging dives in search of fish and squid. Here, sunlight weakens and pressure increases. Prey hidden from surface predators becomes accessible to an animal adapted for prolonged diving. Every successful dive transfers energy from the deep ocean toward the surface world.
Eventually, oxygen again sets the boundary. Recovery at the surface prepares the body for another descent.
Its feeding grounds may lie hundreds of kilometers from land.
Above the ocean, another community searches from the air. Snow petrels seem almost carved from the landscape itself.
Flight allows seabirds to scan enormous areas for signs of prey.
A change in color, a feeding whale, or other birds can reveal food below.
The reward may last only moments before the swarm disappears deeper. Around breeding colonies, skuas exploit very different opportunities.
They are alert opportunists, watching for food wherever vulnerability appears.
For penguin parents, protection continues even after a successful feeding trip.
Cold, predators, and hunger act together on the youngest animals.
A colony provides numbers, but every family still faces its own balance of risk.
Once again, events on land depend on invisible feeding conditions far offshore.
And two penguins add another solution to the problem of Antarctic survival.
Their powerful swimming allows rapid movement between coast and feeding grounds.
Coastal prey can support repeated trips during the demanding breeding season.
Everything captured at sea must eventually be converted into growth on land. A hungry chick receives the product of a journey it never witnessed.
As youngsters grow, their demands increase.
Parents may repeat the commute again and again.
Their success depends on prey remaining close enough to make repetition possible.
Every colony is therefore connected to an oceanic feeding landscape larger than the land it occupies.
And that landscape is constantly being rebuilt.
Glaciers carry ancient snowfall from the interior toward the sea.
Summer light introduces movement into a world that can appear permanently frozen.
Water gathers, travels, refreezes, or reaches the coast.
Every iceberg is temporary, shaped by waves, temperature, and time. Most of its mass remains hidden beneath the surface. Even drifting ice can influence where small organisms shelter and where predators search. For a penguin, ice is landscape above and architecture below. For a seal, it can provide a place to rest between dives.
For a whale, it may define the edges of a feeding corridor.
And for an orca, ice can become obstacle, refuge, or hunting tool.
Meaning changes with position.
During high summer,
Daylight can persist almost continuously.
Continuous light fuels the biological engine near the surface.
Krill convert that productivity into animal biomass.
Fish transfer it upward again.
Penguins become another step in the transfer.
And predators wait above them in the hierarchy. But even the hunter may have a hunter. Meanwhile, a humpback can reach directly toward the base of the same system. Antarctica is not a simple ladder of predator and prey. It is a network. Energy moves through countless routes. Some pathways pass through large fish living below the surface drama.
Antarctic toothfish can become valuable prey for animals capable of reaching their habitat.
Diving seals connect these deeper food chains to the world above the ice. One harp seal can therefore link ecosystems separated by hundreds of meters of water.
Above and below, lives overlap without ever following identical routes. Every species uses a different portion of the same frozen world.
The environment connecting them is never stable.
A fracture can become a pathway.
And a pathway can immediately change who gains access to food.
Hours later, the same opening may disappear.
Survival requires adjustment, not expectation. The rule applies from small birds to apex predators.
Mobility determines which animals can simply leave when local conditions deteriorate.
A breeding penguin, however, remains tied to one location by its offspring.
That bond creates vulnerability whenever prey moves farther away.
More travel means more energy spent before food is even found.
A successful patch can still repay the journey. Now the remaining energy must reach the chick.
The food web beneath the sea becomes survival on land.
During the brief productive season, life accelerates.
Young penguins approach independence as their waterproof plumage develops.
Soon, protection from a parent will be replaced by insulation and skill of their own.
The ocean that sustained them indirectly will become their personal hunting ground.
But instinct cannot remove uncertainty from a first journey. Experience begins with entering.
Movements that will become effortless must first be practiced. Food provides immediate feedback. One successful capture is a small beginning to a lifetime of learning.
A new hunter has entered Antarctica's living network.
But abundance in Antarctica always carries an expiration date. As the season advances, the sun begins spending less time above the horizon.
Darkness slowly returns.
The ocean begins constructing winter from the surface downward.
Tiny crystals collect, merge, and spread.
What begins as a skin of ice can eventually cover vast areas. The food web must now adjust to declining light and increasing cover.
For many birds, timing becomes urgent.
For migrating whales, another long journey is approaching. The energy stored during summer must sustain migration far beyond Antarctica. Every mouthful of krill becomes fuel for a future ocean crossing. Gradually, the giants leave the feeding grounds.
Bird movements change as well, tracking food and breeding demands across the region. Crowded nesting slopes slowly empty.
Noise gives way to wind.
Predators accustomed to concentrated prey must broaden their search.
Dietary flexibility becomes increasingly valuable.
When one opportunity declines, another may sustain the hunter. Krill specialists follow the conditions supporting their own prey.
The growing ice is not simply a lid, it becomes habitat. For small animals, microscopic food associated with the ice can matter through the dark months ahead. As light disappears, productivity changes dramatically.
The Antarctic winter begins reclaiming the sea. Every night adds more frozen territory.
For whales remaining near the pack, pathways become increasingly important.
Breathing access cannot be taken for granted.
Experience again guides the youngest animals. The frozen landscape can change faster than a family can travel through it.
Knowing when to retreat prevents opportunity from becoming danger.
Winter favors animals capable of reading change before it becomes obvious.
Other animals remain committed to the ice.
Weddell seals can maintain access points through ice, preserving a route between ocean and atmosphere.
From below, a small opening becomes a lifeline.
The feeding world lies below, while survival still depends on returning precisely here. Winter hunting occurs with less light and fewer visual clues. Skill turns limited information into opportunity.
Memory completes the journey.
one familiar opening connects two hostile worlds. To human eyes, winter Antarctica can appear empty. But beneath the darkness, life continues. Survival has slowed, not stopped.
Predators remain connected to prey that persists through winter.
On the surface, emperors once again face the season directly. The cycle that seemed impossible last year begins again.
Survival is meaningful because it creates another chance to reproduce.
Across generations, adaptation becomes continuity. No individual controls winter.
The animals survive by working within limits imposed by the environment.
Those limits move continuously.
And eventually, even the longest darkness begins to end.
The returning sun is more than a change in scenery.
Light begins restoring energy to the surface ocean.
Below the ice, photons reach organisms waiting through winter.
Microscopic production begins increasing again. Krill respond to the renewed food supply. Fish follow the krill. Adélie penguins follow the fish. And predators follow the penguins. One returning source of energy activates an entire network. As the ice retreats, access changes again.
For colony-bound birds, shorter routes to the sea can reduce the cost of feeding.
The daily commute becomes faster.
When prey is also close, the benefit can multiply.
More food can reach the colony in less time.
For young birds, ocean conditions become growth.
Far offshore, another traveler returns. The migration has brought the giants back toward the seasonal feast.
Some calves now arrive with months of experience behind them.
Bird activity can reveal prey concentrated below.
The reward has returned as well.
A mouth larger than a small boat targets prey only centimeters long. Scale is one of Antarctica's great paradoxes. Tiny animals sustain some of the largest bodies ever evolved. And those same krill sustain animals weighing only a few kilograms. Different specialists converge on the same source.
From air, ice, surface, and depth, life closes around abundance. Yet abundance remains concentrated rather than evenly distributed. Beyond the swarm, the ocean can still seem almost barren. Finding food may demand long periods of searching. The behavior of other hunters can become information. One clue can transform an unsuccessful journey.
For the colony, success is delivered one stomach at a time.
Predators also spend much of their lives doing nothing dramatic. Rest is part of survival, because energy saved need not be hunted again. Orcas, too, may spend hours simply traveling. A whale cannot lunge continuously. A chinstrap penguin must maintain feathers that insulate its body in freezing water. Maintenance is as essential as pursuit. Every species invests time in preserving the structures that keep it alive.
A true picture of Antarctica includes not only conflict, but long periods of stillness. Stillness conserves heat. Efficient movement conserves energy.
Social contact protects the inexperienced.
Parental care protects the vulnerable. And habitat protects the smallest foundations of the web. Nothing survives alone. Antarctica is a world of boundaries.
Land meets water.
Safety meets hunger.
And every crossing asks the same question. Is the reward worth the risk?
Across this continent, survival takes hundreds of forms. For emperors, survival means enduring together.
For Adélies, it means converting agility into food.
For chinstraps, it means repeating difficult journeys between rock and sea.
For gentoos, speed connects the breeding colony with productive water. For the leopard seal, patience can be a weapon. For the Weddell seal, one opening in the ice can define an entire hunting range.
For the crab-eater, specialization turns tiny prey into survival. For the elephant seal, opportunity lies deep beneath the surface.
For the humpback, a short Antarctic summer must repay an immense migration. For the orca, knowledge and cooperation turn uncertainty into possibility.
For seabirds, flight connects scattered patches of abundance. And for krill, Survival means remaining numerous enough to support almost everything above them. Below them lies an even smaller beginning. Light becomes chemical energy. Energy becomes krill. Krill becomes fish.
Fish becomes penguin. And the penguin may become energy for another hunter. Even that hunter remains part of a larger network of risk.
Pathways overlap, divide, and reconnect.
This is what makes Antarctica not merely a collection of species, but an ecosystem.
And the entire network lives beneath the authority of weather. Wind changes access. Ice changes geography. Light changes productivity. Prey changes position.
Hunters respond.
Travel routes are rewritten. Migrants search farther. Ambush sites lose value. Familiar refuges become essential. Cooperation becomes shelter.
Shelter becomes another generation.
And eventually the cycle turns again.
The smallest lives rebuild abundance.
Colonies awaken. Travelers return.
Families continue teaching.
Young hunters begin learning. No animal truly conquers Antarctica. To conquer it would require the frozen world to stop changing. Instead, survival belongs to those capable of changing with it. Sometimes, adaptation means cooperation.
Sometimes it means intelligence. Sometimes it means traveling across an ocean to reach a brief season of plenty. Sometimes it means patience.
And sometimes survival is simply reaching safety one more time.
From microscopic krill to ocean giants, every life here remains connected by ice, water, energy, and time. This is wild Antarctica, A frozen world where survival belongs not merely to the strongest,